It's Friday, August 3rd. Why should adultery be a crime at all? Is a question the Supreme Court is asking as it hears a challenge to Section 497 of the Indian Penal Code, the crime of adultery. What does Section 497 say? Whoever has sexual intercourse with a woman whom he knows or has reason to believe to be the wife of another man, without the consent or connivance of that man, such sexual intercourse, not amounting to the offence of rape, is guilty of the offence of adultery. So, it is only the man who is deemed the offender and not the woman. This law can be invoked against the adulterer only by the husband of the adulteress. It does not provide for the wife of the adulterer to seek prosecution. It is not considered a crime if the husband of the woman consents or connives to sexual intercourse between another man and his wife. Interestingly, only sexual intercourse with a married woman amounts to adultery. Sexual intercourse by a married man with an unmarried woman, divorcee, widow, sex worker, does not. While admitting the petition challenging the section, the Supreme Court said the adultery law assumes a patronizing attitude towards women. On Thursday, while hearing the petition, the court said the law stating it's allowed if sexual intercourse is with the consent of the woman's husband is an indication of treating the wife as a husband's chattel. Justice Indu Malhotra reportedly remarked, "This is absurd." Now, the government, which has opposed the plea to strike down the penal provision that makes adultery a crime, says this law is important to maintain the sanctity of marriage. Lawyer Flavia Agnes argues that the rationale that the adultery law must be retained to preserve the sanctity of marriage is deeply flawed. It merely protects male privilege within marriage. When adultery with the consent or connivance of the husband is not an offence, the patriarchal notion of the dominion of the husband over the woman's sexuality and bodily integrity is reinforced. It grants the husband the right to treat his wife as a passive sexual being, and her consent to the sexual act becomes immaterial. This poses a challenge to Article 21, which guarantees the right to life and with dignity. The Supreme Court has asked a moot question: why consensual sex between two adults should be a criminal offence? The court has indicated that instead of considering whether the law should be made gender neutral, which is to say both the man and the woman could be punished, it would examine whether adultery should be a criminal offence at all.
Today, when people are crossing from Assam to Meghalaya, they are being asked if they are citizens. We want peace in Assam. At least people crossing from Assam to Meghalaya border should not be subjected to local people policing them and beating them. I seek protection of this government against such violent acts and illegal action against people crossing from Assam to Meghalaya. Thank you, madam.
The Member of Parliament from Silchar, Assam, was referring to reports of Meghalaya's Khasi Students' Union activists stopping travellers from Assam and interrogating them about their citizenship status. This comes days after the publication of the National Register of Citizens in Assam that excluded 40 lakh people. The exercise was meant to identify illegal immigrants as per the provisions of the Assam Accord. Now, the Khasi Students' Union General Secretary says they have set up check gates at several places along Meghalaya's border with Assam to prevent what he referred to as the mass exodus of the 40 lakh people to the state. Those travelling from Assam, going from the districts of the Barak Valley to capital Guwahati in particular, usually pass through the neighbouring state of Meghalaya. Now, the Khasi Students' Union claims they detected more than 1,500 alleged undocumented migrants in vehicles coming from Assam. But it is unclear on what basis they came to that conclusion, or indeed why a students' union can assume a policing role. Additionally, remember the NRC process is not complete, and those left out of the list can still file claims and objections. 8-year-old Mansi, 4-year-old Shikha, and 2-year-old Parul starved to death in a locked room in Delhi while their father was missing and their mentally challenged mother was unable to help. But they could have been saved if not for the systemic oversights, says a report by the Delhi Rozi Roti Adhikar Abhiyan. To start with, under the National Food Security Act, the families should have been receiving free food from an Anganwadi, midday meals from school, and at least 25 kilograms of grain per month under the public distribution system. Yet their stomach, bladder and rectum was empty of even traces of food. They had not eaten a morsel in 8 days. The writers of the Rozi Roti Adhikar Abhiyan visited the area and spoke to neighbours. This is what they found. While there was an Anganwadi in the area, the family who had just moved in was not registered into it. At the front line for all these schemes are workers who are paid a pittance. The children had no access to midday meals. While the eldest girl went regularly to school prior to the summer vacations, she attended only a couple of days in July, most likely because of the lack of midday meals during vacations. The family did not possess a ration card like a lot of their neighbours in the area. The report pins this failure on the lack of framework to enable portability of the right to food. Even without an Anganwadi, the children should have had access to a community kitchen, but there was no such establishment in the area. How did this family slip through the cracks of policy in the heart of the national capital? India, remember, is ranked a miserable 100 out of 119 nations on the Global Hunger Index 2017. A lot of time when you do math, you're stuck. But at the same time, there are all these moments where you feel privileged that you get to work with it. You have the sensation of transcendence. You may not have felt like that in school, but 36-year-old maths whiz Akshay Venkatesh, one of the 4 men to have won the 2018 Fields Medal, considered to be the Nobel Prize for Mathematics, certainly feels so. An Australian of Indian origin, Venkatesh started college at 13, directly from second year, after he proved he could write exams for all the first-year subjects without ever having to take classes for them. He also completed his PhD when he was just 20. Presently a professor at Stanford University, Venkatesh has been recognized for his use of dynamics theory, which is used to study dynamic systems like planetary orbits and electron orbitals using differential equations. His work also uses representation theory. But don't worry, school is over. We won't go into the details of that. The Fields Medal is presented every 4 years to up to 4 mathematicians who are under 40 years of age. Recipients receive prize money of 15,000 Canadian dollars. That's about 7.88 lakh rupees. Of the 4 people Venkatesh shares this year's prize with is Cambridge University Professor Birkar, a former refugee who was granted British citizenship after he fled from the Iran-Iraq war nearly 2 decades ago. Interestingly, just half an hour after he received his 14-carat gold medal, it was stolen from his briefcase. Hold on to your gold, and we'll be back on Monday with news, analysis, and more math.